If Pedro Alvarez Cabral discovered Brazil, then Pelé presented Brazil to the world. The king was the greatest player in football history, and his achievements remain forever marked in the world of sports. Without any doubt, much of what today's talented players do on the field, whether through dribbles, different touches on the ball, or shots at goal, Pelé was already doing years ago. His story was one of the most remarkable of all time. There are football players, and then there is Pelé. On October 23, 1940, in the city of Tres Carracos in Minas Gerais, a boy was born who received the name Edson Arantes do Nascimento. He was the son of Celeste Arantes and João Ramos do Nascimento, better known as Dondinho. His father was a football player who went to play in Bauru, and the whole family moved with him to the interior of São Paulo. On the field, Edson's father accomplished something that even his son never managed to do. Dondinho scored 5-headed goals in a single game. The childhood of Dico, as Pelé was called at the time, was simple and humble. There was a period when his father stopped receiving his salary, and the boy started shining shoes on the street to help support the family at home. But whenever he could, he would grab a ball or anything that resembled one to play football. Much of what he knew how to do was thanks to the teachings of his father, Dondinho. In 1950, Dico was only 10 years old when he saw his father crying. He asked why his father was sad and looking down. Dondinho answered that Brazil had lost the World Cup. Dico turned to him and said that he shouldn't cry because he would win a World Cup. Playing for amateur teams in Bauru, Dico was already working his magic and became known as Pelé because he called the goalkeeper Bile from Basco by that name, and the nickname stuck. At first he didn't like it much, but later he grew to love it. The boy who enchanted everyone with the ball at his feet was discovered by former player Valdemar de Brito, who brought Pelé to play for Santos in 1956. He quickly joined the professional team in training. Pelé, at just 15 years old, did magical things that enchanted all the players. Everyone knew that a phenomenon was emerging. The following year he started playing official matches for Santos and was destroying opponents, scoring goals left and right. In 1957, in 38 matches, Pelé scored 41 goals. The young player's great performance led him to the Brazilian national team, and in 1958 it was World Cup year in Sweden. Pelé went at a young age. In Europe, nobody knew what Brazil was. Our country was unknown until then, and nobody believed in our national team. For Pelé, everything was very new, and journalists said the boy would feel the pressure. But at just 17 years old, Pelé began to show traces of majesty on the field. FIFA chose the shirt numbers randomly, and Pelé got number 10. The numbering at that time had no prestige at all, not even the number 10. But after he wore the number 10 shirt, it was never the same again. Due to an injury, Pelé only made his debut in the last group stage game of that World Cup against the Soviet Union. He scored for the first time against Wales and became the youngest player to score a goal in a World Cup. In the semi-final against France, Pelé was devastating. He put on a show of skill and scored 3 goals. One came from taking advantage of a rebound, another from capitalizing on a loose ball, and the third was an incredible goal. The grand final was against the hosts, Sweden. The Brazilian national team started losing, but soon the magic and beautiful football appeared, and a show began to be presented within the 4 lines. Pelé made several beautiful and effective plays and of course scored. First with a header, and then he scored a legendary, unforgettable goal that went down in World Cup history. Inside the area, he controlled the ball against an opponent, pulled the ball, turned, and sent it to the back of the net. It was a World Cup goal from Pelé. Brazil defeated Sweden 5-2, with 2 goals from Pelé and a show from the Brazilians who presented the country of football to the world. The national team won its first World Cup title. Pelé scored 6 goals in 4 games and became the youngest player to win a World Cup at 17 years old. The boy from Vila fulfilled the promise he had made to his father 8 years earlier. Back in Brazil, the Brazilian people lived in wonder and happiness thanks to the Brazilian team's achievement. Pelé was acclaimed and became a national symbol. A reception worthy of royalty awaited him. He became admired by everyone. The poor black boy from the favela saw himself in Pelé. He was the most promising image that Brazil had, and he enchanted everyone on and off the field. We can say that he was the first global sports star. He was like a magical being, and with the ball at his feet he worked magic and scored many goals for the team from the lowlands. People stopped to watch or listen to him play, leaving shops and turning on radios and televisions. That year, in 46 official games for Santos, Pelé scored 66 goals. He also had to enlist in the army because he turned 18 and played for the barracks team, competing in tournaments and championships between the armed forces. He stayed there for 6 months before returning to Santos. In 1959, Pelé scored the most beautiful goal of his career against Juventus of Sao Paulo. The play started with Derval on the right, who dribbled past one player and crossed for the king. Pelé flicked the ball over one defender in his control, flicked over another, and then flicked it over the goalkeeper. With his head, he sent it into the back of the net. It was an incredible goal, but there was no filming and they made a simulation of the play. What really exists are photos and testimonies from those who saw that work of art. Pelé was completely athletic. He loved training and had the habit of staying on the field after practice to perfect his skills. Besides that, he loved physical training. The guy seemed like a machine from how much he liked to train. He was the first to arrive and the last to leave. He exercised every day and greatly encouraged his teammates to do the same. At that time, there was no Brazilian Championship or Libertadores Cup, and Santos made tours through Europe showing Brazilian football to the world. The guys won almost everything with very few defeats. In 1962, the World Cup year in Chile, everyone thought it would be Pelé's World Cup because he was more mature at 22 years old and was putting on a show on the field. But the number 10 got injured in the second match of that World Cup with groin pain and didn't play anymore in that tournament. Garrincha and company secured the world title for Brazil. Off the field, Brazil as a country was modernizing in efficiency, industry, and culture, and Pelé played a fundamental role in this. He was the spokesperson for various brands and products, in addition to making appearances on various television programs, soap operas, films, and series. Football identified Brazilians around the world. If you said you were Brazilian to a foreigner, they would simply respond with the word Pelé. Santos continued putting on shows around the world and also in the newly created Brazil Cup tournament, which was what we can call the Brazilian Championship. Santos won it 5 consecutive times. But in 1966, it was time for another World Cup. Pelé wanted his 3rd trophy so he could retire from the national team. But at that time, football had changed a bit. It became more physical and more congested. Opposing national teams prepared a scheme to stop Pelé and committed numerous fouls against him throughout the tournament. Pelé took quite a beating in the 1966 World Cup. He was targeted in all the matches, and the Brazilian national team only won the opening match. They lost the other 2 group stage games and didn't qualify for the knockout rounds. The number 10 played 2 matches and scored 1 goal. Pelé then retired from the national team but ended up going back on his decision to be able to play 1 more World Cup. Before that, a remarkable moment happened with the Santos shirt. In 1969, the team was on tour on the African continent, and in Nigeria there was a civil war. But for Santos to be able to play there, a ceasefire was declared. Pelé and the Santos team simply stopped a war. Still that year, in a match against Vasco inside Maracana, Pelé had scored 999 goals up to that point. He needed just 1 more to make 1,000 goals, and he was awarded a penalty against Vasco. Before taking the kick, the Santos players weren't even near the area. Only the Vasco players were there. The Santos players stayed lined up in midfield. Pelé didn't understand anything because if he missed, who would get the rebound? But the team trusted him. At that moment, Pelé said his legs started to tremble and that he was very nervous with rapid breathing and apprehensive. And when it came time for the shot, he scored. The Santos team went crazy celebrating in the middle of the field. Off the field at that time, Brazil was living through the height of the military dictatorship, where people barely had freedom to come and go or freedom of expression. Pelé was heavily criticized for his lack of positioning on this. He actually didn't want to play in the 1970 World Cup, but rumors from some journalists suggest he was practically forced to play by the government. Already in the preparations, the king changed his mind and decided to go play because he felt it was one last challenge. The 1970 World Cup came when he was 29 years old. Zagallo's team didn't just have Pelé as a star. That was one of the best, if not the best, Brazilian national team in history. The group was extremely united and became known as the Squadron. They were like a family both in their gatherings and on the field. Despite the team packed with legends and stars, the national team was discredited. Not everyone believed in the team because of the terrible result in the previous World Cup. In the opening match against Czechoslovakia, Brazil started losing but managed to tie with Rivellino. Pelé almost scored an incredible goal from midfield. The turning goal came in the second half from his feet. Brazil won 4-1. The next game was against England, and Pelé forced goalkeeper Gordon Banks to make one of the best saves in football history. In the match, the king gave a beautiful assist for Jairzinho to score, and Brazil beat England 1-0. Against Romania, Pelé scored 2 goals, one of them a free kick that was an incredible goal. Brazil won the match 3-2. Against Peru in the quarterfinals, another show from the national team. Pelé didn't score but gave more assists, and the team won 4-2. The semi-final was against Uruguay, and Brazil started losing but managed to tie in the first half. In the second half, Pelé activated beast mode and started playing brilliantly. He made an incredible play and was brought down in the area, but the referee didn't call a penalty. The Uruguayan Fontes unfairly stepped on Pelé to hurt him, and that made the king furious. Tired of taking beatings like in the 2 previous World Cups, Pelé memorized his shirt number. In one play on the sideline, Pelé was running and Fontes came to mark him. Pelé waited for him to get close and gave him an elbow to the face. Pelé still received the foul in the play. Then Brazil turned it around with Jairzinho and extended the lead with Rivellino, who received an assist from Pelé. The king almost scored the 4th in a genius play. Brazil beat Uruguay 3-1 and reached the grand final against Italy. On the way to the stadium, Pelé cried and asked God for help. At 18 minutes of the first half, he opened the scoring with a header. The celebration was legendary with a punch in the air and a hug with Jairzinho. Italy managed to tie, but Brazil scored 2 more goals with Gerson and Jairzinho. The Brazilian national team played brilliantly in that match, and proof of this was the last goal. Many consider it the best goal in the history of the national team, a goal that represents the spirit of that team. The squadron scored a collective goal that ended with a shot from Carlos Alberto. It was a beautiful sequence of passes that culminated in an unforgettable goal. Brazil became 3-time world champions. Pelé retired from the national team the following year in 1971 at 30 years old. The king was approaching the end of his career and left Santos in 1974 with 1116 games played and 1091 goals scored. He spent 16 years with Santos. Pelé decided to play in the United States for a team called Cosmos and stayed there for 3 years. He wasn't just a player but practically a celebrity. On the field, the king did well there too, scoring several goals including a bicycle kick. On October 1, 1977, Pelé retired from all fields, and the king left his legacy in football. There were 1,363 games and 1,281 goals counting friendlies. In official games, there were 795 games, 756 goals scored, and 367 assists, with an incredible average of 1.41 goal participation per game. In addition, Pelé won 3 World Cups, 2 Club World Cups, 2 Libertadores, 5 Brazilian Championships, and several other titles and awards. He was a complete player capable of finishing and passing with both feet, with accurate heading, above-average jumping ability, strength, agility, and lots of determination. The famous perfect player. The king passed away on December 29, 2022, at 82 years old, victim of complications from colon cancer. But one thing is certain, a king never loses his majesty, and Pelé will never be forgotten. The most beautiful goal he scored came from a partnership with Celeste, and they baptized him Edson Arantes do Nascimento. Pelé revolutionized football. Pelé stopped a war. Pelé united countries and families. There was no problem of race or language. People were born inspired by his achievements and grew up wanting to be like him. Many football legends spoke about what Pelé meant to them. One captain who won the World Cup in 2002 said he had the honor of receiving the World Cup trophy from none other than Pelé himself, and it was so emotional he could barely speak about it. Watching Pelé play was like seeing the joy of a child combined with the extraordinary grace of a fully developed man. Someone remembered a scene from the 1998 World Cup final. There was a red carpet with suits and ties. Important people were there, including famous athletes, actors, and celebrities from around the world. The stadium was packed with a beautiful tribune. Then something crazy happened. Pelé arrived at the tribune, and everyone stopped, stood up, and applauded for about 5 minutes. It was spectacular. The moment the ball reached Pelé's feet, football transformed into poetry. An artist, in this person's view, is someone capable of illuminating a dark room. They never found and never will find the difference between Pelé's pass to Carlos Alberto in the 1970 World Cup final and great poetry. In each of these human manifestations, there exists an expression of beauty that touches us and gives us a sense of eternity. Some refuse to classify Pelé as just a player because he was above that. Everyone wanted to shake his hand, take a photo with him. Saying you had been to a party with Pelé was the greatest medal of honor of the time. Even the President of the United States once told him that while he needed to introduce himself as president, Pelé didn't need to introduce himself because everyone knew who Pelé was. Muhammad Ali, the great boxer, once entered a locker room and saw Pelé. Despite Ali's own enormous fame, he looked like an admiring child when he saw the football king. When people saw Pelé for the first time, it was unbelievable. They would start to cry. People would grab him and kiss him as if they were in the presence of God. It was madness. Being considered the king of football is not a task for just anyone. It's a task for only one single person. The guy achieved the admiration of all nations in the world, of all players and fans, both past and present. He is the only one to have won 3 World Cups and the only one truly adored and respected by everyone. There may be talented players in the world of football, but someone equal to him will be impossible. If football were a fairy tale, everyone knows who the king would be. Pelé's impact went far beyond the football field. He became a symbol of hope for millions of people, especially those from humble backgrounds. He showed that with talent, dedication, and hard work, it was possible to rise above circumstances and achieve greatness. His smile, his humility despite his enormous success, and his love for the game made him beloved not just in Brazil but across the entire world. The way Pelé played football was special. He combined technical skill with creativity and intelligence. He could score from anywhere on the field. He could dribble past multiple defenders. He could make passes that seemed impossible. He could head the ball with precision and power. He was fast, strong, and had incredible balance. But what made him truly special was his vision of the game. He saw possibilities that others couldn't see. He made the difficult look easy and the impossible look possible. Throughout his career, Pelé faced many challenges. He dealt with injuries, aggressive opponents who tried to stop him with violent fouls, and the pressure of enormous expectations. But he always bounced back. He always found a way to perform at the highest level. His mental strength was as impressive as his physical abilities. Pelé's influence on football cannot be overstated. He helped popularize the sport globally. He showed the world the beautiful style of Brazilian football. He inspired generations of players who came after him. Even today, decades after his retirement, young players study his games to learn from his technique and creativity. Off the field, Pelé used his fame to promote positive causes. He worked as a goodwill ambassador and supported various charitable organizations. He spoke about the importance of education and opportunity for young people. He believed that sports could be a force for positive change in the world, bringing people together across different backgrounds and cultures. The numbers from Pelé's career are staggering, but they don't fully capture his impact. Yes, he scored over 1,000 goals. Yes, he won 3 World Cups. Yes, he won countless other trophies and individual awards. But more important than the statistics was the way he made people feel. He brought joy to millions. He gave people hope. He showed what human beings are capable of achieving. When Pelé passed away, the world mourned. People from every continent shared their memories and expressed their gratitude for what he had given to the world. His funeral was attended by hundreds of thousands of people. Leaders from around the world paid tribute to him. But perhaps the most touching tributes came from ordinary fans who simply wanted to say thank you to the man who had brought so much happiness into their lives. Pelé's legacy lives on. His name remains synonymous with excellence in football. Young players still dream of being like him. Fans still watch videos of his incredible goals and amazing plays. His story continues to inspire people to pursue their dreams regardless of the obstacles they face. The 3 World Cup victories stand as a record that may never be broken. The first in 1958 when he was just a teenager. The second in 1962, even though injury prevented him from playing most of the tournament. And the third in 1970, leading what many consider the greatest national team ever assembled. Each World Cup victory added to his legend and cemented his place in history. But Pelé was more than just a winner. He was an entertainer. He played with joy and flair. He never forgot that football is a beautiful game meant to be enjoyed. Even in the most important matches, under the most intense pressure, he found ways to be creative and entertaining. He understood that fans came to see something special, and he always tried to give them that. The respect Pelé earned from his peers speaks volumes. Other great players, both from his era and from later generations, consistently named him as the greatest. Coaches who faced him talked about how difficult he was to stop. Defenders who marked him described the impossible task of containing his talent. This respect came not just from his ability but also from the way he conducted himself. He was gracious in victory and dignified in defeat. Pelé's relationship with Santos was special. He could have left for European clubs that offered more money. But he stayed loyal to the team that gave him his chance. He helped Santos become one of the most famous clubs in the world. The tours they made around the globe spread the reputation of Brazilian football and showcased Pelé's incredible talent to new audiences. When he did leave Santos, his time in the United States with the Cosmos helped grow soccer in a country where it had limited popularity. His presence attracted other great players to the North American Soccer League and brought attention to the sport. He approached this phase of his career with the same dedication and professionalism that characterized his entire playing days. The bicycle kick goal he scored in the United States is just one example of how he continued to produce moments of magic even near the end of his career. He never stopped trying to do something special, never stopped pushing himself to achieve excellence. This commitment to being his best is part of what made him so admired. Looking back at Pelé's life, it reads like an incredible story. The poor boy from a small town who became the most famous athlete in the world. The young talent who fulfilled his promise to his crying father. The teenager who became a world champion. The man who represented his country with pride and honor. The player who stopped a war simply by showing up to play. The legend who scored 1,000 goals and won 3 World Cups. But perhaps most importantly, Pelé was someone who brought people together. In a world often divided by conflict, inequality, and prejudice, Pelé showed that talent and character know no boundaries. He proved that a black boy from a poor neighborhood could achieve anything. He demonstrated that sports can transcend politics and unite people in shared admiration and joy. The fairy tale ending to his story would have him ruling forever, but even kings are mortal. What remains immortal is the memory of what he achieved and the inspiration he provided. Children playing football in streets and fields around the world still shout his name when they score a goal. That is perhaps the greatest tribute of all, showing that his spirit lives on in everyone who loves the beautiful game. Pelé showed us that football is more than just a sport. It's an art form. It's a way to express creativity and bring joy to others. It's a path to achieving dreams and inspiring others to reach for their own goals. It's a universal language that connects people across all differences. And nobody spoke that language more fluently or more beautifully than the king himself. His story reminds us that greatness comes not just from talent but from dedication, perseverance, and love for what you do. Pelé loved football, and that love showed in every match he played. He trained harder than others. He pushed himself to be better. He never stopped learning and improving. And he always remembered where he came from and stayed humble despite reaching heights that few can imagine. The phrase that if football were a fairy tale, everyone would know who the king would be perfectly captures Pelé's place in the sport's history. He wasn't just the best player of his generation or even of his century. He became the standard by which all other players are measured. When people debate who is the greatest footballer of all time, the conversation always starts with Pelé. That alone shows his enduring impact and legacy. In the end, Pelé gave us moments that will live forever. The teenage wonder in Sweden. The perfect pass in Mexico. The 1000th goal. The bicycle kick. The impossible saves he forced from goalkeepers. The defenders he left in his wake. The goals that seemed to defy physics. These moments are preserved in history, available for new generations to discover and marvel at. But more than the moments, Pelé gave us an example of what's possible when talent meets opportunity and dedication. He showed that circumstances of birth don't have to determine destiny. He proved that one person can make a difference in the world. He demonstrated that being great doesn't mean you can't also be good. The king is gone, but his throne remains. It stands as a testament to what he achieved and a challenge to those who come after. Perhaps someone will eventually match his 3 World Cups or surpass his goal totals. But matching his complete impact on football and on the world? That seems truly impossible. Because Pelé wasn't just a great footballer. He was a phenomenon, a legend, an inspiration, and yes, a king. And that kingdom he built will stand forever in the hearts of everyone who loves the beautiful game he graced with his presence.